time it is. You know what time it is. It's your boy Trevor David Climate back at it. And today, as you can see in the title, we're talking about the net zero lie, aka the lie of net zero. But before we do that, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's jump right in. So, what is this? What is net zero? If you're familiar with climate or any of sort of global warming talk at all, you've heard about net zero. It's a concept where companies say we're going to balance out our carbon emissions. See, I'm laughing as I'm saying it. It's incredulous. We're going to balance out our carbon emissions with measures to absorb the carbon as well, CO2. This could be carbon capture, a promising technology, but by no means fully perfected. Planting trees, or like knowing the amount of trees that can absorb what we're doing. And by doing this, basically, they'll be green and stop the CO2 from entering the atmosphere and thus fix the planet. This is completely ridiculous. And I'm going to tell you why. Reason number one is it's just straight up scientifically inaccurate. Like I said, the basis of net zero is that we're going to balance our carbon emissions with different measures to absorb the carbon, and basically won't get there. It's kind of like saying, not to be too morbid or too strange, it's like saying you have a baby around, like a child, and you're like, I'm going to keep smoking, but I'm going to set up enough like absorbers in the room so it absorbs the smoke so the baby's fine. I have an idea for you. Just stop smoking, okay? Or at least don't smoke around the baby. And that's what we're doing. We're smoking around the baby. So saying you can do this is already well beyond the pale. The issue is this. So you will know how much CO2 your company's emitting, roughly, to a pretty good degree by various measurements. But saying that this is how many trees we have to plant, and this is how much exactly carbon molecules they'll absorb, and so on and so forth, no one knows that. Like, we don't really have access to that sort of technology or knowledge to just know, if you have trees and we plant X amount of trees, X acres, and it's like these are like multiple stacks of differential equations that we just don't even really know about yet. And more importantly, it's something that we don't necessarily need to know, because we do know this. The Earth by itself can handle its own CO2 emissions. The carbon cycle has existed for dang near since the Earth has existed, which, if you're not up on that, is a very long time, like a real long time. We're talking like 5 billion years or so. So, and we've never been in this kind of crisis, not even once ever before. So, again, it's a very unique time in history, and not necessarily for the right reasons. So we know for a fact that the Earth can handle its own CO2 emissions. The second thing we know is that if we simply stop putting the gases into the atmosphere, methane, CO2, nitrous oxide, if we stop putting them in there, the Earth has the power and the mechanisms to clean itself. Radiation in the atmosphere can break them up. The trees will take them in. We don't know exactly how many trees per carbon molecule. Give me a break. But we do know the trees will absorb the carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide also makes its way into the water. There's a whole list of things that the Earth does to clean itself of any number of gases and keep itself running properly. So if we stop doing that, it won't happen overnight. Like, everything won't reset itself overnight, but it will happen quicker than you imagine. The Earth is very large and very powerful, but we have to stop doing the negative activities. So that's what we know. We know the Earth can handle its own CO2 emissions, or its own CO2 presence, as well as methane and, basically actually anything else. And we know that if we stop doing these things, the Earth will get itself back to where it needs to be. So to sit up here and try and say if we plant these trees and if we offset, don't even get me started on carbon offsets. That's a little beyond the scope of this video, but those are nonsense too. So if we do this and plant these trees, no one knows that. And don't let them tell you that they know that. That's the key. That's the ticket. So yeah, the main issue with net zero, which is such a buzzword, it's like a crazily popular term, is that it scientifically doesn't stack up. You're talking about things that you don't have knowledge of. So that's the first reason. If someone tells you about net zero, or these companies are saying this, and so on and so forth, don't buy it. It doesn't stack up to science, for sure. The second reason why net zero doesn't add up is because it gives companies an excuse not to change. The first reason is the big reason, but this is pretty big too. We've all heard this. Net zero by 2050. We've committed to, see, I can't even hold a straight face. We've committed to net zero, so on and so forth. And if you've done your research, you'll know that what really happens is auditors come in and look at these companies, every couple of years. And if they're not meeting the standards, you know, even if they're not even really that close, they'll say, okay, we see you're doing something, or you've quote unquote, you've committed to it. So, we'll come back again in 10 years. You're like, okay, no problem. So then 10 years later, we're net zero by 2060. Then you're net zero by 2070. This is what people call, when people use the term greenwashing, this is what they're talking about. It means putting up the image of green or clean energy or sustainability and not actually doing anything about it. This is extremely common. Now, the purpose of this particular video isn't to call anyone out. It's not to call out specific companies. Not in this video. But if you do your research, if you look at the emissions since when a company said that they were going to start lowering them, and if they did, you can find this kind of information in companies' annual reports. It's not that hard to find. You will see that not only have many companies not lowered their emissions in their net zero claims, they've actually increased since they've made the claim. So how do they get away with this? Because they maybe have a few measures or certain, certain things set up in place that look like they're doing it. And yeah, that's what the actual term greenwashing means. And it is the ultimate form, the supreme form of kicking the can down the road. It really is. So as long as this net zero concept has people think it exists, it'll give companies an excuse not to change, which is the last thing you want. Okay, so those are the two reasons that net zero just doesn't work. It's scientifically inaccurate, and it gives companies an excuse not to change, meaning things won't change. Okay, so I'm doing all this talking. You're like, Trevor David Climate. You're on here talking about the climate, the atmosphere, the environment. If you had a solution, if you had the keys to the castle, what would you do? I'm glad you asked that because I'm going to tell you. Okay, so if I had the Dragon Balls and Shenron shows up and he asks me, Trevor, what do you want to do? And I could just literally change things in the blink of an eye, what would I do? The first thing you have to do is have a worldwide ban across the border, no pun intended, on new oil exploration. That can't exist anymore. And natural gas and coal, y'all know what I'm talking about, fossil fuels. But we'll just say oil for the sake of this. So no new oil exploration. I realize, and I've said this before, the system is so ingrained and it's so set up that, it's going to take time to change. It would be great if we could change immediately, and we need to change immediately, but I get it. It took us X amount of 100 years to get here. It shouldn't take us X amount of 100 years to get out of it, but it'll take time. I get it. But as far as exploring for new oil, you just have to cut it out. Like Steve Rogers said, leave that stuff under the ground where you found it. Just leave it alone. So that's step one. So that's going to ensure that there's no new oil going into the system and obviously the air. Step two, step by step, systematically ban the burning of fossil fuels. This has to start at the highest level, companies, industry, etc., and eventually make it down to the lower level, to the individuals. Cars, internal combustion engine. A mass shift has been happening, as y'all are probably aware, away from internal combustion to electric, to EVs. They're just better. I've made videos about this. Norway, famously, even though Norway does have some issues, but they are great with this, there are more EVs on the road in Norway than there are gas cars. Think about what I just said. That is actually amazing. I'm not making that up. That's super cool. So there's progress being made toward this, and eventually, internal combustion engine vehicles, motorcycles, anything of that nature will be a thing of the past. It has to be. We don't have a choice. And there's precedent for this. Back in the day, in the 90s, there was this thing called the hole in the ozone layer. And, many of you watching this video are probably well aware of that. Now, it was caused by CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, something they put in like cans as a propellant to make them like spray, to do the spray effect, essentially. Well, the scientists did the number crunching, much like they've done with global warming, and they realized, oh, this is the root cause. This is why we have a hole in the ozone layer. And that is dangerous beyond even what I have time to talk about here. Basically, the ozone layer, O3, protects us from the sun's radiation. A lot of things do, actually, but that's a critical component. So you can't have a hole in it. So over time, governments got together, led by the USA, my home country. We're having some challenges right now, but the USA can get it together. It really has a lot of the time when they need to. We have the power to. But Okay, this was led by the USA. And CFCs don't exist anymore. It's globally illegal to use them in any product. That's amazing. And the hole in the ozone layer has steadily been repairing itself since the 90s. Surprise, surprise. And also nitrous oxide. Another thing that we knew about in the 90s that you don't hear about anymore, thank the Lord, is something called acid rain. That's where certain gases make their way into the atmosphere, mix, and pour down with the rain. And it's not acid like, hydrochloric acid or like sulfuric acid. It's not going to burn you instantly, but it touches rocks and stuff and literally melts away like rock features and things of that nature over a much quicker amount of time than normal. So also very bad. Well, they realized the source of this acid rain was a compound called nitrous oxide, NO2, which is also a greenhouse gas, incidentally. And that spearheaded the introduction of the catalytic converter, something that goes in. It's in every car, legally has to be, that filters out the gases from the burning into less harmful gases. NO2 is one of the things that's eliminated. Now, cars still emit carbon dioxide, a severe greenhouse gas, and carbon monoxide, but which you can't breathe in. Like it can just kill you on the spot. But NO2, that's like a thing of the past. It's not coming out of cars, at least. So, that's something else we all got into, we got into gear about. No pun intended. And you don't hear about acid rain anymore. That's something we heard about in the 90s. It doesn't exist. So the precedent exists. The precedent exists for humans, for governments getting together and literally banning chemicals or gases that we know have a negative effect on the planet or us, our own existence. The precedent exists, but oil is so, burned into the system that it's taking more time. I get it, but it also has to go. Okay, so step 3, and to me maybe the most important step, got the Dragon Balls there. Step 1, step 2, what's step 3? Is to set up an organization to monitor the future of the planet and make sure we don't have to go through something like this again. I would actually set it up. You could call it the Avengers for all I care. I don't care what it's called. But you actually have to have like an organization of people, scientists, engineers, like communication experts, people who are really tuned in to make sure we don't do this. How many more crises can we really go through? This isn't the DC universe. Comic readers know what I'm talking about. How many more calamities do we really want to go through? It's too much. You got, fossil fuels. You got you had the CFCs. We had, you got plastic in the oceans, which we still have to deal with. It's so many things. And it's like, scientifically, millions of scientists know what the issues are and how to fix them. But yet it's one calamity. It's like, just one thing after another. And no one wants to deal with this. I guarantee you that. No one wants to deal with this. So I'd have an organizations, as you will. Again, call them the Justice League. I don't care. But it has to be something to make sure that has the data that can look forward and make sure we stop going through this nonsense. Who wants to always be going through this? We have other things to focus on. What about like interplanetary travel? That'd be cool. That takes real like brain power. You know what I mean? Like you have to really be locked in on that and not be dealing with all this crazy stuff. Or like curing like the most complex conditions. We have great tools, but there are things out there that can probably be resolved, but it's going to take a lot of manpower, a lot of computer power, and you can't be focused on like, these frankly avoidable issues. So yeah, we have a lot of potential, quote unquote, that we're not even really tapped into yet. And just day by day, year by year, we're dealing with this crazy stuff. And yeah, I'd have an organization, plural, if necessary, probably necessary, who would just, they would deal with problems even before they even came about. Because we have the science, we have the data. They knew about global warming in the 70s, maybe even a little bit before that. So yeah, that's my 3-step plan. That's how if I had Shenron by my side, would just resolve this instantaneously. Worldwide ban on new oil exploration, systematically ban the burning of fossil fuels from the top to the bottom, and set up an organization just to monitor the future of the planet in general for any crises, so we don't have to keep going with this, and we can focus on like real progress. You know what I'm saying? And that's it. Okay. So to start wrapping this up, what are my action steps? I've said a lot of lofty things, a lot of concepts, a lot of, like science, quote unquote. So, but what can you do today, to actually combat these issues? Number 1, like I always say, buy electric. Go buy an electric vehicle. You can cut out your CO2 on your part completely. They're cheaper, they're better, they're much faster. Buy electric. Number 2, Vote. People are doing that too. We got to get the right people in power. So go out and vote and make sure people have sustainability on their agenda. Number 3, also important, maybe one of the most important, start your own clean energy company. Don't wait for someone else to make a change. Make the change yourself. Like, you can actually do it legitimately. And that's what we need. Because we need like everybody to be on the same page, to really be doing this. So yeah, those are my classic 3 action steps. And you can change climate change today yourself. Not waiting on people to do it. You can actually do it. And that's it. Another video, another production by Trevor David Climate. Yeah, man. Things are starting to change though. Like Colombia, for example, recently, I believe banned new oil exploration, and they want to transfer completely off of fossil fuels, coal, natural gas, and oil by 2050. It's 2026, so again, it would be nice if it were sooner, because we got to have our atmosphere. That's, some would say, necessary. But it's good. It's a step in the right direction. And more countries are starting to do that. So yeah, we're there are some challenges, but we are moving in the right direction. Check out my book, The Clean Energy Handbook. It's available on Amazon right now today. You can get it for a very reasonable price, and it just lets you know personally what we can do, what you can do to resolve climate change, what climate change is, and what clean energy is, and just get you on the right track, something you can have yourself to give you a full rundown of what's going on and what you personally can do to change. So check that out on Amazon right now. I wrote it myself, illustrated it myself. It's a great read, just something good to have. Go get that. And that's it, man. I love making these videos. I love doing this because we need the change. We need the word to get out there. We need the inventions. We need the policy. We need it all. We need it all. Shout out Ryusui, Dr. Stone. Yes, so I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful. We gotta be. And with that being said, we're on the right track. There are some challenges, but we're on the right track. We can do this, and we will do this. So until I see you on the next one, which will be very soon, Buy Electric. Peace.